Welcome back to the Dungeon Master's Block, the place where we come to talk about the Dungeon Master, the most important person in the game, the only person capable of playing God, killing characters, and lowering the ego of everyone else at the table. I'm your host for today, DM Neal, aka Jote Moniac, and today we have a DMnastics takeover because Celeste Conowitch and I are going to talk all about rewarding your players. It's a great topic, and we definitely dive into some aspects that have never been codified officially by WotC, so hopefully it is a helpful and useful conversation for your game and your table. But with that out of the way, let's head to the meat.
I'm starving. We ain't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days.
Why can't we have some meats?
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys.
So today for the meat, we have, it's not a guest. You're not even a guest. You're part of the crew. You're part of the BPPN, the Block Party Podcast Network. So that means you are just simply wearing a different hat today. But we have Celeste Conowitch. I didn't even write anything down. So I guess, do I just try and go off of memory of all the amazing things that you're doing?
If that could be fun, I guess. Let's see.
Well, I mean, certainly the DM of Venture Maidens, an all-film presenting actual play, 5th edition, that's been going on for 6 years. I believe so, because you all keep mentioning 6 years in the podcast, so that's why that's in my brain. It is wonderful. They are on campaign 2, and if memory serves, the last one that's on my podcast feed is episode 8, which I need to catch up on. And if you go to your RPG shelf and just kind of peruse through, inevitably you will find the name Celeste Conowitch.
Yes, I've done a couple different books, working as a full-time game designer and doing some part-time work for companies like Wizards of the Coast, Cobalt Press, MCDM Productions. So perhaps you own something I have written.
Or just like hang out on Twitter for like a day, and you'll find 5 streams you're probably going to be on.
Probably.
Actual plays or discussions, or if nothing else, you've probably heard her on DMnastics, another show on this very network.
Yes, I'm excited. I mean, I'm now, I feel like I've stepped out of the little gym and I'm here in a bigger gym. Or is this the gym like branch of the larger block? I guess, okay, wait. Yes, the gym is on the block. I'm excited to be here, run around the streets. Hey, it's me. What's up?
Perfect. You've been here once or twice before, but we are back. And it's just you and I, which means we're probably going to have way too much fun. But we've alluded to it, and I would be remiss because I just think it's funny to ask you some of these questions just to hear your answers. But Celeste, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Long walks on the beach, anything like that? Yeah.
So like I mentioned, I work as a full-time game designer. So that means I spend my days and nights and weekends writing Dungeons and Dragons primarily. So I am a full-time employee with 2C Gaming, which is a third-party publisher of Dungeons and Dragons. And then I like I said, I do a lot of freelance work with those aforementioned companies. Most notably, I guess for Wizards of the Coast, I was one of the writers on Icewind Dale: Rime of the Frost Maiden. And when I'm not writing D&D, you can catch me producing, DMing Venture Maidens, or I'm the co-founder, co-owner of the Penwitch Studio Podcast Network, which works to uplift rarely heard voices in the nerd community. And other than that, I like video games and board games and everything on that theme. I do not like long walks on the beach because it is very sunny outside.
But even if it's not sunny, it's just so hard to walk a long distance on the beach. I don't know what person ever thought it was fun.
Or like running on the beach, those monsters who you see in like little shorts running around along the sandy shores. Why? That's challenge mode. That's difficult terrain is what that is.
Yeah, Baywatch was never in slow motion. That's just how fast you run on a beach.
It's so slow.
Yeah.
Painfully
so. We're going to take a hard left. Is there anything that you're currently working on? And of course, I know this very well, that you can tell us about.
Yes. So right now, actually, as of this very moment recording this on November 12th, I am involved in a Kickstarter from 2C Gaming. Currently, we are kickstarting a project called Rewards and Rarities, which is a comprehensive guide to adventuring awards. So, and of course, compatible for D&D 5th edition. So essentially, this is a giant tome about all of the different things you can reward your party with. Everything from an expanded catalog of adventuring gear to new weapons to mounts to hirelings to rules for vehicles, vessels, and of course, a ton of brand new magic items that are themed for and designed for each of the base classes in Dungeons and Dragons.
Definitely. And to change only a little bit about that statement, has already been kickstarted and then kicked and kicked and kicked.
I know, we just hit another stretch goal before this recording, and I'm honestly, though, I'm not surprised because I feel like a lot of the information and tools and mechanics we're developing in this book have been something sorely needed in 5th edition. So I feel really great about the support so far because we're making something here that people need desperately.
Yeah, I think it's we'll save that for the meat of the podcast. Okay, so my surprise question.
Surprise question. I'm ready.
What is the last board game that you played?
Ooh, let's see. The last board game I got to play, my friend Lisa got the new Stardew Valley board game that was that was kickstarted, and then she got one of the early release copies. So we got to play through that. That was super duper fun. It was one of those, you all work together games, and thank God, because boy, there's a lot going on, but it was super fun.
Done. Okay. So that leads us right into our topic at hand, which we're going to address to some degree and certainly almost give you a sneak peek into all the things you could find in this book and hopefully a valuable conversation. Valuable being the key word because we're going to talk about rewarding our players.
Hey, treasure.
Player characters. Rewarding our players is probably just having free food, but rewarding our player characters.
Order a pizza for your players and then give them treasure for their characters.
To frame it, I think it's good to have a short conversation about the weird gap in 5th edition, even though a lot of people seem to think 2014. I would always say 2015, but whatever. So we're 6 years into the run of 5th edition, and there is really nothing that would tell me how to just go buy a magic item.
Right. It is something that they have actively avoided talking about.
For reasons unknown, especially because the currency of the world and success remains gold pieces. Mm-hmm. But the thing that could gain the most advantage for my character is a magic item. So I would have liked to think that there would be a go-between, like when I'm a kid and I got to draw a line from this thing to that thing, that there's some line I could draw. Some
kind of line to use.
Gold pieces and magic items.
Yeah, I feel like for whatever reason, maybe it's because Wizards was burned by past editions, but the whole question of economics, of how gold is supposed to be spent, of how much you're supposed to give, what you're supposed to earn, where you can find it. It's all a big question. It's like they've wanted to avoid or not specify. So we have some half answers, some clues scattered through a couple different books. They're always small. The pricing is always very strange, and the downtime rule, and it's all just a big mess in general.
Yeah, and there is something certainly to be said about an idea that, I still feel like, again, referencing the 5 to 6 years of 5th edition, I still feel like I'm only barely grasping because it's not how I was DM raised, that unless it's in an official WotC book, it's not gonna go into my game.
Right.
And I get it. I totally get it. It's like, these are the people that write the book. They're the people that write the game. They're the people I get my rules from. If it's not in those rules, then that's just not how my game functions. But the idea that well, then what do I do? But I also get it from their from their perspective of once I codify it, that's the standard.
Yeah.
But if I leave it open, then you can decide, is it a low magic setting? Is it a no magic setting? Is it buried in magic setting? You can do whatever you want. So the first question I have is so ambiguous, but I'm going to throw it out. Celeste, when should we start giving rewards to our players? Characters. Yeah. I keep writing players.
Yeah. I mean, I think as soon as possible, because so one of the things that frustrates me so much about the nebulous nature of magic items currently and pricing and just, treasure tables that just aren't great. Getting loot, getting treasure, getting magic items is so integral to fantasy storytelling. I mean, you look across all the books and novels and everything that has made the genre what it was, like Lord of the Rings wouldn't be anything without the ring, So it is such a cornerstone of the types of stories people want to tell. And I don't think people have a satisfying D&D experience unless they do get rewards like that. You work hard, you get something at the end of the day, whether it's gold, for completing a quest, whether it's learning new information, getting access to new powers, whatever it is, that is built into the nature of the game. So if your players aren't feeling like they're getting something in return for all of the things they're doing, all the people they're saving and fighting, that game is probably going to fizzle out. So I like to immediately, reward your players for doing well, even if it's giving them, hey, this check lets you get this extra little bit of information, or wow, you killed that goblin so fast. Good job, new player. Look, here's some loot. So you encourage these behaviors as often as possible to almost train them how to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Carrot, not the stick.
Yes.
Well, it is one of those things where, and again, the reward, and I think it's one of the very first things, even because, surprise, you sent me over some of the assets. But the idea of it doesn't have to just be magic items. And that's certainly a trap that I have always fallen into.
Yes.
Like a lot of us do, because they're cool things and we want to see them on the table. And then,
all of a sudden there's so many.
We regret every choice that we've made.
Yes.
But the idea that rewarding the things that you want to continue to happen in the game, like you have to set those standards. So I think that's probably the question of the question is, what are the things that you want to reward your players for doing?
Yeah. I mean, this is something that, because when we first launched this product, or, I was first talking to people about it, people were like, why would I want this book? I don't need another magic item compendium. I don't need a bunch of new magic items. And I'm like, no, that is, yes, there are new magic items in this book, but that is not the heart of what is going on here. In this book, we provide so many different options. So GMs and even players can get inspired to find new things, to reward new things, to explore and try new things with their characters, to be able to get and unlock different things and access to the world. So, I mean, what are the kinds of rewards you want to get? You want to get things like influence is something we get. We cover lands, if you become very wealthy. Maybe if you have people who work for you, so hirelings. Maybe if you want to invest your resources into getting a way to roll around the world or transport yourself different places. Make your adventure more easy. So you get awesome tools that can make things better. So expanded adventuring gear, new types of weapons. We give options for finding new materials that you can incorporate into your existing equipment to upgrade. So basically, I mean, it's almost limitless, the types of things you can reward your players with. And it's really only limited by their creativity and what you're willing to allow or not. So Rewards and Rarities presents a whole array and range of those type of options to help you think outside of the box, basically.
Yeah, because the box gets really cramped once it's only just full of magic items.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you think about, usually usually you have it in your mind as a DM, GM, or anything in between that there's a stop point or a success or something like that. And it does ring a little hollow depending on what is there and like how much the players feel like they've gotten. Certainly there's an aspect that it's like one of the rewards is experience and now you've leveled, but that's kind of not what we're hitting on. So one of the things I always think about is once they've completed an area, which you just alluded to, like, do they get that area?
Yeah.
That's always what I think, like, first and foremost. Is this area theirs now? Not that I want to just give them everything, but...
Right, or if they, they defeat the evil wizard who kept this land, like, ensorcelled and everyone was terrified and afraid, and the wizard is suddenly gone, do they become the masters, the rulers of this land? I'm sure the people would certainly want them to. Or, what happens when they are sent by a god to fulfill a quest, and then they do? Like, shouldn't the god give them some kind of cool blessing, charm, powers, like rewards that go on beyond? A god certainly isn't going to hand you like a stack of gold and say, there you go. Good job.
You've done it here.
You've done it.
You check your bank account. I've wired transfer
1 million gold.
Yes, that you cannot carry anywhere. The other thing is definitely having in mind those people that the player characters and the players themselves really attach themselves to.
Yes.
There's something that's really interesting about the idea that a reward becomes the success of that NPC that they are really attached to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was a huge thing I really wanted to address in this book, specifically in like the followers and hirelings chapter. So we provide a lot of additional systems and rules, mechanics that very easily incorporate with what already exists. And basically, these mechanics make it viable to travel with like a horse, or if you have a friend, an NPC commoner friend in the party, they don't instant die if you use some of the options we've provided here. And you can spend time training your animals, for example. So they might have combat training so they can take a reaction to get out of the way when a fireball goes off. Or they have things like toughness that will allow them to not drop instantly to 0. So allowing people to be more creative and to have a little bit more fun without being so worried all the time about everything exploding because everyone in the world is made of glass except for, adventurers. We have options for that.
Sorry, just think of all the NPCs that have died. Terrible, terrible deaths.
All the horses that have died. Yeah, I know. You get so punished if you have that horse and you want to go into a dungeon and that's like, uh-oh. What do we do? We bought all these horses just to get here, and now we leave it outside. A random encounter is going to happen. They're going to die. Like this is terrible.
Yep. Just rolling the percentage die to see when and why the horses are dead. I
know it's just happened so many times, and we just
you took a pet in, it dies a terrible death.
Yep.
Now, all that said, there is certainly magic as well.
Yes.
But before we get to magic, one of the questions you certainly have to ask is how much magic is in your setting? Then you start to play the classic line from the Thor movie. The only difference between science and magic is what you want to call it. Yep. That kind of concept. So mundane items also can be really helpful. Like the true tapping into the magical weave and creating an item doesn't have to happen for it to be a reward. I know that's an area that was touched on as well, because the other thing is certainly that a lot of campaigns kind of don't go as high as we all think they do.
Yeah, and I think also one of the challenges currently with treasure and with rewards is it doesn't scale very well, the current system here. Because I've been in this situation before, certainly, where my party gets to such a high level and we have so much money and then nothing to spend it on. Nothing at all, because you can't buy magic items, I guess, according to the books. They're so rare and it's so hard to find. And then beyond that, also, like, you don't want to invest in things like mounts at high level because they'll just auto die. You don't really want to You can't like run a business while you're off adventuring. So there's not a lot to do with gold at higher levels currently. So that is certainly one of the issues we wanted to fix. So, I mean, a big section of this book is magic item pricing. So it provides guidelines for you to price magic items. It gives suggestions on when magic items might be available for sale. So, and then we break that down too by different types of settings. So setting based, like you've been mentioning, if you have a low magic setting, obviously pricing is going to be different than if you're playing in a high magic setting like Eberron, where everything around you is just, every street lamp is magic. So that is something we really wanted to consider. Pricing based on availability and then on scale as well, so you can have rewards for all of these different levels of play that actually feel satisfying. And so when you get gold at any level, now you have some options to spend it on. You can hire an army, you can, build your own teleportation circle, you can upgrade your mobile fortress with an alchemical lab, like whatever you want to do. Doing this at different levels is huge consideration. And I think part of that, too, is giving people more things to spend gold on means more non-magical rewards. Because, yes, in a lot of settings, magic items are really hard to get to. So that's why we wanted to give a lot of options for, you can go back to this huge table of new adventuring gear options, and maybe you can just buy some sweet, like, glamping stuff to make your journeys a little easier. Like, that is a cool way to reward your players. And then they have things that they can use to interact with the world in specific situations that don't just, break the game wide open and do make those magical item rewards feel really special.
I think about the idea of like, you have rope trick and spells that are similar to that, but almost like building that into your tent. And so then it is like a perfect environment the second you go inside of it. The other thing I think, and this is, I have emotions and ideas attached to it, so we'll see how deep I go into this rabbit hole. There are times in which we can apply real world logic to our games. It is very foolish to do it on a consistent basis, or the idea that everything needs to fall into these because, again, there's a lot of magic. But the one that I think of right now is like, if my player characters are in fact that filthy rich with gold, they 100% could find any magic item in the world.
Yes.
Because that is what rich people do in our world.
You can hire people to find you magic items. Like, why isn't that addressed? Like, of course that's an option that would exist logically, but currently not.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could literally put out like 1,000 gold bounty on any information for XYZ artifact, and you would get, I mean, certainly you would deal with a lot of fake stuff, which, I mean, at that point would be a campaign all its own that we could spiral out into, which we will not. But the idea that like you couldn't find it, like there would be services built around adventuring parties and finding them their magical items.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, so in Rewards and Rarities, we cover a ton of services, including things like that. So, like, why not? Why can't your adventuring party hire another adventuring party to do the quest they don't want to do? Or, why can't they buy an army for the final fight of your campaign to, fight off all the baddies while you go deal with the big one? Hire an archmage to give your sword a +1. Why would that be so hard to do is my question. And I don't think it should be. And Rewards and Rarities is that answer.
Yeah, it's really interesting because one of the things that keeps coming up in my brain is the idea that some of this is just a codification of things that have happened for decades. It's almost like, and I know it's not written in this way, but like it's almost like you could just have a journal of stuff other people did, because that's what's starting to come to mind when I talk about the idea of like what could they, and this kind of gets us into the section of some of the best and worst ideas that we've done, you and I. So one of the better ones, and we'll just start there, is that they cleared a section of a dungeon that was already being occupied by humanoids. Because like sure, like if they go into the deeper fungal area that was only these evil myconids, like I don't necessarily think they're going to be like, yeah, this is our home now. We're myconid people. But it was this evil, whatever, rogue encampment. And then they got rid of them all. And that's where they lived because everything was already set up like they would want it.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So yes. Good ideas, bad ideas. What are anything in between of rewards that you have given your players?
Yeah, I have two that instantly come to mind. Both of these were from my 3.5 campaign that I ran for almost 5 years. It was a wild edition, folks, for magic items in particular, and just the power level of things was banana pants. So the first one I had, it was like a little vial that had just like a piece of like nerule in it, like Nerul's little kind of like a Nerul phylactery. And Nerul, for those who don't know, very, very evil god of death, undeath, like very nasty Greyhawk deity. So I, of course, had this item inserted into, the story, and they had to take the item and they were warned, absolutely do not open it, of course, and just take this to this place and it can be cleansed and whatever. So of course, automatically they open it, right? And then this little piece of the roll came out, and basically they all their life force was eaten, and they all got like the undead template. So from that point on, because at that point in 3.5, you could apply templates to your player characters. So they were all undead now running around. And this template was extremely powerful, super backfired. Basically, no more worrying about poison, and you were just immune to a bunch of different types of damage when you were undead. And it was a whole thing that in the moment I was like, oh yeah, this cool, like, god of death thing, and like this is what this does, and it'll be like really nasty if somebody takes it and opens it. And they just, of course, opened it up, and I was like, oh, this could be fun. And it was a huge regret for having to deal with the rest of having an undead party in 3.5 was a pain in the butt. Yep. So that's one. I also, in that same campaign, different phase of that, they basically did a favor for a god. And the god said, all right, you can have a wish. Whenever you need to use this, you can make a wish, and I will grant this for you. And again, the wish spell in 3.5 significantly more powerful than the 5 edition, the 5e edition you might be used to. And so they sat on that wish. They sat on that wish for months and months and months until I definitely forgot about it. And then they basically wished away the villain, like the entire invading force, like that was driving the whole campaign. They basically banished them, and they were gone, and they couldn't get back. And I was like, oh boy. So they used that wish, and the whole villain, the whole plot disappeared in an instant. So those were my two like big like rewards I gave that really, oh boy, that, yeah. I just remember them doing that, and then I was like, okay, let's take a break. And I kind of went outside and sat down and was like, what do I do next?
It'd be like, it makes me think of if in Avengers Endgame, rather than like everything happening from the scene of where he's like on my left and all the portals open up and all the people show up, and there's this epic battle, it's just snap and Thanos' army is just gone.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Oh,
it's like,
that was something else.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So, yeah.
Cool.
So there is absolutely a scale that exists between you. Rewarding well can be a challenge.
Yeah, I did, and longtime listeners will know of the whole. Sometimes you get yourself into a hole because you allow the players to roll, and it's a piece of advice I've given before, and I give it again. If you're in a scenario where you're not comfortable with the party rolling a 1 or a 20, you shouldn't probably have them roll.
Yeah, don't have them roll.
because inevitably they will either roll a 1 or a 20 when
Yes.
you would least want that to happen. So yeah, they reversed tracked an owl bear that they had killed, that they probably should have run from but got lucky, and then like found that there were babies and then sold them at a price that makes sense, but then like I shouldn't have let any of this happen. Then they had just so much money very, very early on, and it just like skewed things in this super weird way from then on.
Yeah.
What do I do? Because then you think like, do I stop rewarding them in game because they have so much? But then then we go back to like these things that they complete ring hollow because they're not receiving rewards. So then you have to find those alternate methods. But yeah, I made a bad choice.
It's hard. It's hard. It is hard to do. And this is something I like to bring up. It is hard to give people gifts in real life. And that extends into Dungeons and Dragons as well. Like, it is so hard to get like the perfect birthday gift for somebody you care about. There is a very small percentage of the population that is just good at knowing what people want and delivering that successfully. So why do we have these wildly high expectations on ourselves as GM to just figure it out? It's hard, and I think people need help. I certainly need help, like making these decisions and figuring things out. That's why I'm constantly asking my players for feedback to open up the conversation. And Rewards and Rarities talks a lot about how to have those kind of conversations with your party.
Because it's just, I mean, it's a great analogy, and it's just as difficult because, we can use ourselves as examples. Like, oh, no, okay. So I know Celeste is going to have a birthday, and I'd like to get her something, but, like, I'm not really sure what it is. So I have to just, like, super awkwardly try and ask questions without just, like,
just without being obvious about it, or, and then you're like, well, did they already have this? Or, like, should I, or, like, wait, they're, like, moving soon. Maybe I shouldn't get them something. Or, like, it's so painful all the time.
It's the exact same as gift giving. And you're right, some people are just so good at it and others
but most people are not. It is a very small percentage of people who just know what to do and nail gifts every time. It's like a superpower.
Jerks.
I know. My friend Katie from the Venture Maidens is like that. She's what a blessing.
I can see that. Yep.
What a gift. I love having friends like that, but honestly, we're not. we can't all be like that.
So, what is a good reward that you have given?
I think yes. So something that I gave away in Venture Maidens Campaign 1, and something that is going to be in both the Venture Maidens Campaign Guide and Rewards and Rarities, because it's such a good magic item, is a magic sword that basically a fae heard the story of King Arthur and Excalibur and thought that was super neat. So she basically made her own version of this sword, and when our adventuring party came along, she hurled it at them and was like, take my blade, champion. And the fun of this, and these are the type of magic items I really love, the ones that have story hooks already built into them, was the item was cursed, which is something that the barbarian who picked it up, she knew it was cursed, but decided to use it anyway. Basically, as you were using this blade and performing heroic deeds in the name of this fae, the blade got more and more powerful. It would unlock more and more abilities every time you did something, like, worthy of the blade. But if you ever used any other weapon, the fae and the sword would become incredibly jealous, and you would just basically whiff with every other. You could not attack. You would have disadvantage using any other weapon other than this sword. So that was a very, very fun reward to watch my player going back and forth with, like, struggling with that, but then loving the sword, and then, trying to meet these expectations. And it was cool. It became a major part of their character and their journey So rewards like that, I think that tap into who your characters are and give them choices. And it's not just one choice. It's a, do I keep this thing? How do I interact with this? How do I feel about this? Do I take it up even though I know that there's a chance that something terrible could happen if I do? That kind of stuff.
Can't use that bow ever again.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I love that. And the idea using the term curse is required because of mechanics, but almost like if there were a way to say, no, it has stipulations, not really a curse. It just has guidelines you need to follow.
It has rules.
So, I alluded to giving them the area that they could stay in, giving them. So in my recent campaign, they're playing through Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and it's not really built in there that they would get these things, but at this point they have 2 ships. And because that's just not really how it's air quote written, but it made more sense as they started to go on to one have their own, and just the way they felt about that one, it made sense to add the other.
Yeah.
But it also retroactively assists me because then they are required to spend money on that ship, or else, fun fact, those people won't just keep floating around for free. You got to pay them or they're just going to drive off. So kind of, I think the goal, because that's what they've alluded to, and then furthering that road is just building a fleet and then figure out cool ways to add certain things and then engage with those things that I add as rewards. That's the other thing is once you give that reward, trying to go back to it, figure out what ways you can just to keep it viable. Because let's say not that you would, but let's say you give that sword and then you go for the next rest of the campaign in a purely diplomatic avenue.
Yeah.
And they never get to draw that sword. Well, cool. The sword's great, but literally none of the things that made it great are being accessed through the campaign.
Yeah, you really do have to. That's my big gripe, I think, with a lot of treasure tables and how things currently work now, because it's all randomly generated what magic items you get, that it sort of feels like, I don't know, I feel like I swing on my bad days with rewards. I swing between, oh no, I'm the GM who gave my party so many items that they do not remember what they have and they've never used this and it just goes in their bag. I give them something, it doesn't even matter and it's terrible. Or I'm the GM who gives an item that, I gauged that wrong, and then it breaks the game and it's just a whole nightmare. And oscillating between those two is very frustrating. So I love encouraging people to give rewards that are not necessarily magic items, and certainly not magic item rewards over and over and over again, because it totally diminishes how special they are, and it's harder to pick relevant magic items the more magic items you give out. Something I really like to do, and I've done a lot, is also give people access to allies as rewards or resources. So it's okay, well, you helped out this person and you dealt with them in such a way that you have formed this great relationship. So now, whenever you need a rare book, you have somebody you can go and talk to, or you made a contact in the Thieves Guild. So whenever you're in this city, you automatically succeed on these types of checks or things like that.
I like it. Okay, so my favorite section is homework. Can we think of anything that a person could go listen to, read, engage with, play, if it's a video game or a board game, to get ideas of how to give rewards?
Yeah, I draw so much of my inspiration for this from video games. I feel now indie publishers in particular, the powers that you unlock as you advance in games are great ways to look at how to scale powers, or just the types of options available. So when you look at skill trees, the way things build on top of each other, or you have games, like Legend of Zelda, where you need this one piece of equipment that can now do this specific thing. Looking at those formulas, I think is an incredible source of inspiration.
Yeah, the video game that came to my mind as you were just kind of referencing that last thought, was the idea of World of Warcraft. When you defeat a boss, there is a set of gear that can come off of that boss. And all of those pieces could theoretically help like one person. It's interesting to think of the idea of adding that to D&D, where like there's still some randomness, if that's what you're going for, if that's what you like, if that's what your players like, that there's some randomness that when the boss is defeated, that something they have would be useful for someone. Because the idea that like all these things are just useful for the one character that mimics what the big bad does. Like, let's say they have a bunch of armor and a sword. You're like, well, I mean, we all can figure out that there's just the one person in the party that's going to use that. Yeah. But the idea that the additional things that they may have, that there is some variance to it, but then just like having almost a literal loot table, as WoW would refer to it.
Right now, I'm trying to think of examples, and I think I just have Hollow Knight stuck in my head. Just the balance of the different types of things you can get is totally what you're going for. Because like in that game, you can get money that you can spend on objects. And these objects, you know, they might be new map locations or information or just make your life easier in some way. You can also find a limited selection of these like super incredible magic items that, you know, make you run faster and jump further. And you can also learn like magic power abilities in that game. And then as well, on top of that, you can go to like a smith and upgrade your blade. So having all of those different kinds of options. Oh, you can also get like these mystical charms that allow you to do certain weird things in different combinations. So looking at I think the balance of all the different types of rewards, I think Hades is another great example of this. So like roguelite games are awesome to look at for this, especially because you do usually have like either consumable things or things that break eventually, or you have to start over, you get new things that are slightly different. There's just so many great sources of inspiration to help you think outside of the box, about what to give your players and what different ratios you want to give them to.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I would be remiss if we didn't, and Sage would haunt you and I both if we didn't mention Magic the Gathering as a fantastic source of just, I mean, that could be your literal loot table, like cards you've selected. And then how interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Just pick, all the artifacts you have.
Yeah, you just like fan out the cards in front of your players and have them pick one or two, and then that's what's there. If you're doing the whole horde mentality of like, okay, you open the treasure chest and this is what's in there, sort of thing. Okay, we've done it. We've certainly done it once again. And so the most important question I have for you is, where can people go to find all that you're doing, and of course, where can they go to find the Kickstarter?
Yeah.
And of course, going to Kickstarter, typing in 2C Gaming and seeing all the great things they're doing, and then clicking.
Yay. Yes. If you want to keep up with me, the best way, the most rapid fire information you're going to get is if you follow me on Twitter at @cconowitch. But if you want to see the full catalog of everything I've written, published, my stream schedule, podcast schedule, you can always find all of that cataloged at celesteconowitch.com. And yes, please do head over to Kickstarter. You can type in rewards and rarities, 2C Gaming. If you're following me on Twitter, I'm talking about it all the time. You can go and check out the Kickstarter. It has currently, as of this recording, which is, so today is the 12th, we are closing out the Kickstarter. We have 23 more days to go. So December 5th, 2021 is going to be the end of the Kickstarter. So make sure to head over and back, check it out. Even if you don't want to back, you can just go and pick up the free PDF of the promo, which is like 20 pages that would be in the book. And right smack in there, in that free resource, I provide magic item pricing. Easy, boom, simple to use magic item pricing. I did it. I solved it. It's right there for you. I priced out a ton of SRD magic items so you can see the system work. I also provided step-by-step guidelines for pricing your own magic items or any other third-party magic items. So please do head over, check that out. Even if you don't have the funds, get that PDF because there's some good stuff in there.
Boom. We just want to thank Celeste again for coming on, stepping out of the gym, joining us here on the main pod, and definitely helping us better understand how, when, and what to reward players with. I keep saying players, and I definitely mean player characters. But if you want to get a hold of us and let us know how you have been rewarding your player characters at your own table, you can always email us at dungeonmasterblock@gmail.com. And of course, head over to Facebook and Twitter, where you can find us, follow us, and keep track of all the amazing things we're doing. And as always, the Dungeon Masters Block is a proud member of the Block Party Podcast Network, where you can check out other shows like Detentions and Dragons, We're So Bad at Adventuring, DM-nastics, and more. But that's it. So thanks again for listening to the Dungeon Masters Block, the place where we come to talk about the Dungeon Master, the most important person in the game, the only person capable of playing God, killing characters, and lowering the ego of everyone else at the table. I'm DM Neal. Good night, good luck, and keep on dungeon mastering.
Goodbye.